Welcome back. Let's go now to the US, where Wednesday was the first year in office for Barack Obama. For the most part, the president used his political capital on the financial crisis, healthcare reform and other domestic concerns. But in foreign policy, relations with China have loomed large during Obama's first 12 months, making room for both sides at a crowded table that included wars in Iraq and Afghanistan. Obama has gone to great lengths to cultivate a good relationship with Beijing, and he visited the country in November. But trade disagreements and US arms sales to Taiwan mean disputes are once again threatening to overshadow that initial goodwill.
This is the headquarters of Google in Beijing. On January 12th, the world's top search engine said it's considering exiting China over cyber attacks and censorship in the country. China stands firm, insisting on proper internet regulation. It blames Google for breaking the law with too many links to pornographic content.
According
to the Chinese constitution and other regulations, we have to maintain the stability of the country and prevent things from happening that will hurt the mental and physical health of our citizens.
It may be a coincidence that the controversy erupted just a week before the first anniversary of Barack Obama's presidency. On his first full day in office on January 20th, 2009, Obama kept his campaign promise by signing an executive order that toughened the rules for former lobbyists taking up government positions. Yet that order has not shut the door between big corporations and Washington. According to the U.S. website, The Politico, Google was the fourth largest corporate source of corporate contributions to Obama's campaign. 3 of its former officials were appointed to posts in his administration. And Google had notified the White House about quitting China before it made the public announcement. A business issue has been turned into a political dispute, putting China-U.S. relations to the test. 1 year ago, when Barack Obama took office, many Chinese were optimistic that the charismatic and popular president could bring goodwill to Beijing.
President Barack Obama, when he was campaigning, he did not engage in any serious and contentious debate about China policy. But you look back in history, you think about Ronald Reagan, you think about George H.W. Bush, Bush Jr.'s father, about Jimmy Carter. All of them had a contentious debate about China, and also that includes Bill Clinton too.
There were impressive opening moves. In April, President Obama met Chinese President Hu Jintao for the first time at the G20 summit in London. In July, the first round of the Strategic and Economic Dialogue was held in Washington. In November, Obama became the first U.S. president to visit China during the first year in office. He spent 4 days in China, the most in his 7-day Asian trip.
Today we have a positive, constructive, and comprehensive relationship that opens the door to partnership on the key global issues of our time.
The messages he sent to Beijing were positive, but tensions have been running high since the friendly early gestures. The problems, as usual, are economics and trade. From punitive tariffs on Chinese tires and steel pipes to an anti-dumping probe into American auto part exports, a tit-for-tat dispute is being waged across the Pacific. During President George W. Bush's last year, there were 12 anti-dumping cases against China. But from last January to September, there were already 14. And China is facing increasing pressure to allow its currency to rise against the dollar. While in Beijing, Obama expressed his opposition to trade protectionism. But analysts say he's also had to soothe the American public. 1 year on, his approval rating has dropped below 50%, nearly 20 percentage points down from his first days in office.
Given, number one, the huge trade surplus that China has against the United States, and second, you think about the rising unemployment rate in the United States, According to the most recent statistics from the Bureau of Labor Statistics, the unemployment rate is about 10%. This is the highest probably in the last 2 decades. And so in face of this mounting trade protectionism from the labor union, which is a key support base for President Barack Obama, I wouldn't be surprised if the current trend of anti-dumping investigation against China continues.
Besides the trade friction, there's the Taiwan issue, what's been called the most important and sensitive issue at the core of Sino-US relations. On January 7th, the Pentagon awarded Lockheed Martin a $6.5 billion contract for an unspecified number of advanced Patriot missiles to Taiwan.
Our stance of firmly opposing U.S. arms sales to Taiwan has been consistent and clear. We have already made stern representations to the U.S. We urge the U.S. to clearly recognize the serious harm in arms sales to Taiwan.
The deal was part of the 2008 arms sale plan inked by the Bush administration. Since 1997, Lockheed Martin has been a big donor to both the Republican and Democratic parties. 8 Bush administration policymakers had ties to the defense manufacturer. And the recent arms sale could create 4,000 to 5,000 jobs at the Lockheed Martin factory in Texas.
This has been a tradition that has been stuck to by every president after Jimmy Carter. There's a law, the Taiwan Relations Act, that governs U.S. arms sales to Taiwan. No president after 1979 has ever denied the Taiwan arms request. Even though, of course, each president varies somewhat in terms of the amount of arms to Taiwan.
According to the U.S. think tank Eurasia Group, the biggest risk for 2010 comes from U.S.-China relations. Analysts predict U.S.-China ties will significantly deteriorate in 2010. They anticipate more trade disputes, the continuing arms sales to Taiwan, and Obama's possible meeting with the Dalai Lama. But the fact is that China and the U.S. are interdependent. China is the second largest trade partner of the U.S., and the U.S. is China's largest export market. It's also the largest foreign holder of U.S. government debt. America needs China to resolve many pressing problems, including nuclear standoffs with Iran and the DPRK, climate change, and economic worries. Both sides have to work hard to contain the risk.
There is a Chinese proverb, "Consider the past and you shall know the future." Surely we have known setbacks and challenges over the last 30 years. Our relationship has not been without disagreement and difficulty. But the notion that we must be adversaries is not predestined, not when we consider the past. Indeed, because of our cooperation, both the United States and China are more prosperous and more secure. We have seen what is possible when we build upon our mutual interests and engage on the basis of mutual respect.
2010 is shaping up as an uneven year for China and the U.S. Obama may have to think twice about how to handle the world's most important and most complex relationship.
While China-US relations will be tested again in Obama's second year, there are many uncertainties. The atmospherics may get challenged from time to time, but the health of the relationship will be based on whether the two countries can keep from being sidetracked by the disputes. With that, can we come to the end of this program? If you've got questions or comments, you can send us an email at worldinsight@cctv.com. I'm James Chow here in Beijing from all of us here. Thanks for watching. We'll see you again at the same time next week for your insight on World Insight. Europe to the Americas, from Africa to the Asia Pacific. Each weekend from Beijing, we'll take you on a journey that looks back at the 7 days gone by. We'll tell you what, who, and why. For a new insight on World Insight.